Once upon a time, one man spent large portions of his free time binge playing Kerbal Space Program. This series is the result. Hello everyone, I am Pepino here, back with more Kerbal Space Program. As always, we jump right into the action as we are here on Minmus, putting away our other rovers. We have 3 remaining after the fatal crash that killed Billsby and Gusmall Kerman. But anyway, yeah, we've got one of them docked at the base, and there's the second one, and here is the third one, which is actually over at the return rod section, after it just took Luke and Hadzer over there. And right now, due to Luke and Hadzer going back to Kerbin, and the tragic accident that we just had, I think we only have one Kerbal back at our base. I believe Philemon Kerman is currently alone, so we are going to do something about that as soon as we get this rover back there. And this is when I have finally realized if I turn off the torque on the SAS, I can just drive this thing normally without it wanting to tip like crazy. I believe this is the episode where I finally realized that. But anyway, we just bring it in, nice and easy to dock it onto our base. So there we go, and after that, we are going to hire some more crew. We take a look at all the guys we have hired. For some reason, Gusmall and Billsby are back, and I'm assuming they're zombies, so I'm not going to trust them enough to send them into space. But anyway, we send, I originally put them on, then decide, no, I can't do that, so I go and hire one more. I hire Dude Bulls Kerman, which is kind of an amazing name. But anyway, we have created a shuttle here that's going to take 8 crew members up to the Minmus base, and we take a look at what the launches look like from a Kerbal perspective. And it's actually somewhat interesting. I'm just kind of chilling inside the habitation module here. As we are in the process of taking off, you can look out both windows and stare at boosters, basically. But you can see all the Kerbal's reactions, which is rather interesting. As we take another look out the window, down at the ground. You can tell I've gotten very used to flying this launcher, now that I can do it without looking. But here, yes, we see them begin to start freaking the heck out and yelling and waving their tongues hysterically. So here we go, we take another look, and we're just dropping that over and doing our turn. And I do that out of the view of the Kerbals, just so I make sure we don't crash and kill all of them, because that seems like a bad plan. But now that we're set, we can take a look again at what they're doing, and they are absolutely losing their minds. Look at these guys, they are just going crazy. I'm not sure if it's the gravity turn that scared them or what, but eventually we get ourselves up where our apoapsis is high enough, and then all we have to do is extend our orbit, and now they look a lot more happy, which is good. They were kind of freaking out a little bit too much there, but not all of these guys are the bravest Kerbals, if I remember correctly from while I was hiring them. But basically I'm sending them up for training on Minmus, and then they will be doing other missions and things like that after they've completed their training. Even though training is not in the game yet, I think that's actually going to be a thing at some point, or at least it was planned at one point. I don't know if that's changed. But I'm going to imagine here, as we are coming in, I skipped our most of our orbital maneuvering just because you've seen it all so many times. And we bring these guys down now, and we're ready to land 8 Kerbals on Minmus. Like I said, I am going to have them live in pairs and train as a team. Luke and Hadzer are a team, and I pair them off individually or whatever, or in their little pairs in a little bit. But anyway, yeah, this is where I'm going to send Kerbals on their first mission, even if it's just for a short stay, which we'll see later, because we are going to finally start also doing some things that aren't directly related to Minmus, such as establishing a space station and possibly doing some interplanetary stuff coming up here. But we will also be continuing to focus on the Minmus base as we bring these guys down and try to land them successfully fairly close to our base, because we don't want to have to go on EVA for a long time. But you can see there they're all very, very excited to finally be getting to Minmus. So that's good. Smiles all around for all of the Kerbals. And we bring them down for a nice, easy landing where they won't have to EVA too far. Only about 400 meters or so. So there we go. And nice, easy touchdown. And we'll get these guys out and let them fly over. And then they will just get into their individual pods and all of that. But I'm not going to show every single EVA on camera because they all look the same. But anyway, eventually we are getting our last few Kerbals into their sections and all of that. And then we go around and look at the teams. Here we go. Dude Bulls and Wilwell, Hadzer and Luke. I missed one a little earlier. Hadfield and Dunwise are also a pair. And anyway, so that was a quick look at our base, and then we're going to move this thing over farther away just to get it kind of out of the area so that we don't have too many things that have to load at once. And then we will eventually be adding more stuff to our base, but for right now, the next thing I'm going to do after this is focus on our space station, like I said. So I'll put this down kind of near the return rods area so that I can just take a rover back to this if I ever need. This thing is capable of getting 8 Kerbals up into orbit, so I figured it'd probably be pretty handy to have on the surface if I ever needed it for some reason. So anyway, we'll bring that down and land it over there. And then get ready to launch this thing. We'll take a closer look at it in a moment, but this is the very large space station that I have constructed. It has a science lab as well as housing for 16 Kerbals and like 20 some docking ports, I believe, of different sizes and facing all different directions. So hopefully we're going to be able to be fairly cool and creative with what we add to this space station. And if you have any suggestions for that, feel free to let me know as well. But I have some ideas of my own, at least at first. So here we see a little bit more of our space station getting up into orbit. I know the first thing that I'm going to add to this, and the first thing is going to be a lot of fuel so that I can fly ships all around and dock them back at the space station whenever I need to refuel, just because that's a lot easier than relaunching a new ship every time. So there we go, we have our nice stable orbit, and I eventually settle on bringing it down, I believe, to an 85 kilometer orbit, something like that, maybe 90. I think I settled eventually on 80 or 85. And the reason I did that is because it's low enough where if I need to lift heavy objects to connect them to the space station, it won't be that difficult. So here we go. We see. Remember that RCS tug we left in orbit a few episodes ago? If you don't, I don't blame you. It was kind of irrelevant, but right now what we are doing is just using the RCS thrusters to get an encounter with our space station, so that way we have a nice little space tug up at the space station that can help us assemble everything when we need to. And after a couple revolutions and a couple small burns, we get a pretty nice encounter. So there we go, and we'll just bring it in, nice and easy for docking. That's the really nice thing about these space tugs is it's just basically a probe, an RCS tank, and power, and then you can pretty much just drive it under its own power really easily, and they're very easy to control. Obviously, you have a SAS unit on there as well, because otherwise it would probably be very difficult to control. But anyway, bringing down our intersection here to under 2 kilometers, and then again the entire process of docking, slowing yourself down and getting as close to the target as you can. Here we go, and again, I am awful at it. I'm docking on the night side. It just seems to always happen, and I never really remember to try and avoid it, so I'm sorry for that. But anyway, here goes our little RCS tug, and I'm just going to dock it right to the front of the space station here. And this actually took me, I believe, a little bit too long for how easy this thing is supposed to be to control. That's the thing about docking, is occasionally I just do really bad at it. Considering I mostly don't really know what I'm doing, I just kind of randomly push buttons and hope it works. But this thing, when I turned off the SAS there, it was flailing like a madman. I couldn't really control it, and that was my problem. So once I figured that out, it was pretty easy to dock. But there we go, we get a nice look at our space station. I'm not going to decouple those fuel tanks just yet, because they're still full of fuel, so I can use them to refuel things later on. But anyway, we return to Minmus, and Hadfield and Dunwise Kerbin have been up on Minmus training for quite a while we constructed that space station and sent it up into orbit. And so those two are the pair we have chosen to command our space station, since they are now fully trained from living at the Minmus base for a while. So they are very qualified, and we are going to send them on another return rod journey back to Kerbin so that they can launch up to the space station along with the other crew. And I said I was going to send crew to Minmus first, but I've decided, actually, now that I remember, I'm going to at least have the experienced crew on board with newbies when they're going up to the space station. So these guys are basically going to be in charge of everything, and they're going to have to teach the other Kerbals the ropes, because I will have to go and hire a bunch more crew, because I think I sent everyone I hired up to the Minmus base, other than the 2 zombie Kerbals, which I'm not sure exactly how they came back from the dead, but we'll figure that out maybe. I don't know. But here we go, drifting in at 3 times time warp, which is really, really fun. And driving these things at night is also really fun. But anyway, we'll take some surface samples back just for the heck of it. Sell them like moon rocks to young Kerbal children and things like that. Alright, here we go. And here we get Dunwise Kerbin, and they are both hopping on board their return rod, and let's hope that this time we can avoid the catastrophic near-death results of the last return rod trip, if you remember. The way I think I'm going to do that is I'm going to slow myself down a lot more before going all the way down to the ground. So I'm going to aerobrake around the planet a few times, and my hope is that that will slow me down enough where the parachutes won't be such a huge jolt and knock our Kerbals out of their seats. Because I think we got pretty lucky that they both landed on the platforms last time. Otherwise, we would have probably had another death or 2 on our hands. But anyway, flying over Minmus, just doing our burns and whatnot. And eventually, we had a little lag and whatnot, but eventually we get over and get our Kerbin periapsis to drop down within the atmosphere, and then we can come in for a nice aerobraking maneuver, and like I said, we're going to try go around a couple times and hope that that way we don't endanger the lives of our passengers. So here we go, and we are on time warp, coming in pretty quickly, and there we go. Now at about looks like 1500 kilometers, coming in again pretty quickly, and there's the Space Center right below us. And now we start entering the atmosphere, and we can take a look at our crew members here, as they are about to, I think, experience at least some re-entry effects. Although I'm not sure. I don't think we actually dipped low enough on the first one to do that. And I have to burn a little bit here because I want to kill enough velocity to avoid a moon encounter that would have really messed up my trajectory, and that would not have been good. So anyway, I burn a little more just for the heck of it, and then we will come all the way around again and aerobrake to bring that down even more. So there we go. Time warp all the way around. Come back down. And here we go. We're going to drop just down below 40 kilometers now, so this should aerobrake us a lot more. And I'm not sure if it's this one we return all the way to the planet or not. It would appear not to be this one. We are already on our way back up, so there we go. We did aerobrake around twice. Now we come around one final time, and this time we will drop down into the atmosphere, I believe. So here we go. Get right down to our periapsis, and do not, if you use a design like this, go to 4 times time warp and physics warp, because it stretches everything, and that's just really not a good idea. But here we go. We come screaming through the atmosphere on re-entry. Both of our Kerbals barely shielded from all of the heat by the small steel plates there. And it looks like, again, we are going to land in mountains, so much for the flat landing spot that I would hope for. And if you remember last time, this thing tipped over and almost exploded. So we're going to try and avoid that, but this time it doesn't look possible. In the future, though, we'll try to land these things maybe in water or on flat ground. But this one, no, it's going to be on a very steep hill, and again, it jolted, and both of our Kerbals fell out. Luckily, they were able to get back in very easily this time. And I tried to turn this thing a little bit. I don't know why. I didn't really expect it to help, but I was just kind of bored as I watched it fall to the ground. But here we go. I try to turn it to angle where we're going to land, and it still tips over and explodes. But anyway, one last thing that we will do this episode. Like I said, the first thing I want to add to the space station, even before crew, is a lot of fuel. So I am going to send up a couple orange tanks worth of fuel, put them into orbit, and then eventually we will dock them to the space station. Or at least that was the plan. But, as you will see here in just a moment, we are extending our orbit, or trying to achieve an orbit, rather. And we get one there, and here we go, but all of the sudden, everything broke apart at the bottom. That docking port broke off, the engine broke off, and we are pretty much tumbling randomly in this orbit. Luckily, we got into orbit before that happened, but now we're stuck there, and we'll have to deal with it next episode. So, thank you guys for watching, hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.